Hello, hello, hello. It's your girl, Camille B, the HR counselor. I am super excited to have my friend, Miss Dezzarae Henderson. She's the CEO and founder of For Hire HR Solutions. So today, what we're going to talk about at Let's Talk. So you're a manager. Now what? Welcome,
Mhm.
Des. How you doing, Dezzarae?
Hey, Camille, how you doing, Millie
I'm
Millie?
doing well. Doing so well. So I'm
Oh,
so excited. We've been chatting offline. So I'm so excited
mhm,
to have you on this channel so we could have a real conversation. You and I, we've been in the HR game for a little bit, and we're both
mhm.
running into the same thing. Like, okay, so now we have promoted these amazing people, these amazing humans. They are now a manager, but now what? What are they
Mhm.
supposed to do? How are they supposed to manage people? So let's chat about that. What is going
Right?
on? What are you seeing on your side? Because I know what I'm seeing on my side when it comes to new
Yeah.
managers and the problems that they're facing.
You know what? It is the worst trend that we continue year after year, decade after decade. We promote these folks whether we feel like they're able to fill the role or we just need that seat filled. So we're like, oh, they're the closest to it. We throw them in this. Sometimes there's all the good intentions of training them and getting them enrolled in all the fancy classes, right? That the training and development have set up and all these different things. But then business needs trumpet. So they end up endless like kind of rat race of just, meeting the needs of business, meeting the needs of business. They never get the time to get the training or the company doesn't have the right training for them. And then we wonder why when it's time to do performance reviews or when they have to, write up their managers or develop their folks, why they don't have the skills to do it. We never gave that to them. And I guess we could eventually, get into the conversation about, are these things that can be taught or they learned or what have you, and that's probably a whole different talk altogether. But in the meantime, regardless, they're in these roles and they need our support and they need some tools. So
Absolutely.
yeah, they get into management, they get the first level of management, no training, and they move up. And then they become a senior, VP or director or whatever with no people skills. They're winging it.
Yes. Or they have sometimes you have some that don't even like people. That's even scarier,
Hey,
right? Like
what?
that.
What?
Yes, that's
Mm,
all a word, as they
that
say,
part.
because you have
That
people
part.
that are managing and they don't even like
They don't like it.
people.
They don't like people.
And
Yep.
that is so scary. So, needless to say, I'm going to say just by those brief comments right there that you're a fan of making sure that we train our managers, right? Is that what you're saying? Is that
Absolutely.
what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. I'm all about, right? In the perfect world, I want some strategic HR happening, right? I would like to have a company look at their succession planning. Don't look at where your business is today. Look at if you had one of those managers or leaders leave, who's in the pipeline? At least two people down. What are the next two people for these roles that could be promoted into that? And already start preparing them now. Give them opportunities to show their leadership, get developed, attend certain classes and meetings. I mean, it's life changing and it's left seamless for them as they get promoted into these roles because they've already had the experience, so it's not nothing new for them. And then we can kind of flesh out any issues that they may have before then. If they have issues giving feedback, if they have issues presenting or whatever it might be, right? We can already deal with that before they're officially in their roles. That way they're more successful. It's like putting someone in a car behind the wheel and saying drive and we're going to teach you how to drive while you're driving the car. That's crazy, but we
You
do this
know,
to these managers all the time. And then they want to call us in as HR to slap them on the hand and see what's going on with them. And they need help and they're failing and this and that. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they need help? Because you didn't give them any, any tools.
exactly. And I'm so glad that you said that. Like we put them in this car and then we give them the keys and we're like, all right, now have a good day. And we didn't teach them
Uh-huh.
like how to put the key in the ignition, how to turn the car on, how to move it from
Mhm.
park to drive, how to make sure when you go to, it's park to drive, not park to reverse. Or you might need to go
Mhm.
into reverse. Or if you put it in drive, you may go through the house. Like we didn't give them the
Yep.
skill sets. But I think the reason a lot of times some of these things happen is 9 times out of 10, okay, maybe 8 times out of 10, I'll digress. I'll say maybe 8 times out of 10. A lot of times, we,
Mhm.
even as HR professionals, we are so much a part of that build the plane while you're flying it. And
Yes.
sometimes that spills over into
Mhm.
our leaders as well. And so we kind of, they do the same thing. And so we have to start by being a better example, I think, as HR professionals to make sure that
Mhm.
our leaders understand like, okay, these are the expectations. And that's where those 9 box
Mhm.
comes into play, right? So if you're doing a 9 box, you're grading people now. It doesn't say you think people are
Mhm.
horrible, but you're already planning that succession planning, saying, okay, these
Yep.
are the people that you could promote today. Like if you were to move out of your position, that person could be in that spot today. This person may need a
Absolutely.
little bit more work for another year or two, three, or who do we
Mhm.
see being able to move in those positions in the next 5 years? But another thing I think
Mhm.
we need to look at is managers need to understand what really is management and then
Yes.
what is the expectation of the manager, because those are really two different things, right? What is
Right.
management and what is the manager's responsibility, right? Because
Mhm.
it's the same, it's from the same family, but it's two
Right.
separate
A little bit different.
expectations. Yeah, I
Yep.
think we need to break that
Mhm.
down, because a lot, what I'm seeing, at least on our side, is I'm getting a lot of questions and concerns. And in my mind, I'm like, this is elementary. This is like first grade stuff.
Right. Right.
But then I have to remind myself, like,
Mhm.
it may be like that for me, but
Because we've been doing it. Yeah.
we've been doing it so long, but, and
Mhm.
not just that, but did the manager's manager prepare them for this role prior to putting
Mhm.
them in it? Did we give them all the
No.
tools so that they could be
Mhm.
successful? I think that's why we're seeing so many concerns, because companies used to, back in the day, like having a new manager's training and having, remember
Mhm.
when we used to do yearly
Yeah, we
manager
went through
training?
orientation and you have
Station,
the trainings.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
And we are
Yep.
kind of shy. We've shied away from that. Everybody's like, oh, that's old school HR. But you know what? That's brick and
You know what?
mortar. That's
Sometimes you have to,
ABCs.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yeah, brick and mortar. You gotta, sometimes you have to go back to the foundation, right? If it worked then, why are we changing? We may change how we do it or what we add to it or some of the concepts, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We have that in there for a reason. And those beginning levels are those are great for people being successful.
absolutely. I think that we just need to do a better job of, now you're a manager. Now what? What are the
Hmm.
expectations? So, what would you say are some of the things that we need to do a better job of helping that new manager to hone those skills?
Hmm.
Not even so much just us, but more so their
Hmm.
leaders, because a lot of this bulk of responsibility should fall on the manager's leaders.
Mhm. I agree. I think some of the things are giving them a realistic view of what manager is, right? Some people think management, they're like, oh, I get more money, I get bonuses, I get stocks, whatever it is. They're focused on that, but they're not focused on the hard side of management, like the expectations, the accountability, that you have a team that you're now responsible for and how you do that. How often you communicate. Some managers think that management is, oh, I have the information, I hold on to it and I'll let you know when you need to know and you just do your work. So then people end up not trusting that manager because they feel like their secrets being kept from them, right? Then you have the
Um,
manager that feels like being a manager, I have to be your friend and chummy with you and stuff. And then sometimes they're promoted, from their friend group, right? So that's a different dynamic.
yeah.
We don't prepare them for that. So I think giving them a heads up, like when I do a training like this with some of my clients and with their managers, and we kind of talk through these things. And granted, again, they're already in management, but sometimes we can hit a reset button and kind of talk through these things and highlighting to them what true management is. Because I think sometimes once people hear it, they may not always want management. They may say, you know what, that's a lot. I don't know if I'm ready for that right now. I got to be responsible for this, that, the other. Or they can say, you know what, that's a good point. I never thought about that. I'll keep my eyes open and when those situations come, because everything is great. They jump in there, they have the best ideas and things like that. And they don't realize that you can have the best ideas, but you got to rally your team around it, right? They may not even be happy with their manager. How do you handle that? If there's conflicts that come up, how do you handle that? Or at least be aware that there's going to be conflicts. There's going to be an employee that you're going to have to reprimand and write up. How do you go about doing that? And what's an acceptable time to give feedback? And all those things, just to kind of give them a heads up so that they kind of are going in wide, eyes wide open instead of constant surprises coming up. Like, oh, I didn't know I'd have to be dealing with this. I didn't realize I have to do that. And because that's not a fun place to be.
No, no, not at all. And I think they, again, you're dealing with people. So before, especially when you come from working in that particular environment and you were all friends, everyone was, best of
Yep.
buds. And now it's transitioning. Like, so how do you have that
Hmm.
conversation with that employee? Because usually before you pull them out and put them into that management position in a perfect world, you should have been preparing them, right? So there,
Right.
you should have been able to start seeing where that individual maybe starts to separate themselves a little bit from the group. Not saying that they're
Mhm.
not amicable and they don't have good relationships, but you could really see
Right.
the shift in that person, the growth,
Mhm.
right? Because you could see that they're planning to one day be in a management leadership position. So they start to kind of change their behaviors. And so
Mhm.
even in that, I love the fact that you said when you have your clients, you have that conversation like, how do you shift? Because it's really a mind shift. And it's hard
Yes.
sometimes for the employees, but I've noticed it's even harder for the managers because they have those relationships and there may be some people that they're
Yeah.
closer to. So then you hear about favoritism and those
Yep.
kind of things, and you
Mhm.
run into that. And then it's like, oh man, like they were best of buds. And now it's about the
Yeah, they're the boss.
perception.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're no longer able to be part of that buddy club because now you're a manager. And so you have to separate yourself and you have to change your mindset. Before it was just like, I want to make sure everything is right for me and my guys or me and my girls and my team. But now it's more so, yes, I want everything to be great for the team. But what are my
Mhm.
responsibilities to the business? Because now you're
Mhm.
responsible for a book of business.
Right. Some dollars.
Some dollars. That's right. You have a budget.
Right.
And that's a
Yep.
scary word for some people. They like budget. Yeah, you have a budget
Mhm.
now. You have to meet your numbers. You have to hold people accountable. These are all the things that you have to do when you become a manager. And it's scary for a lot of people. It really, really is.
Yes. Yeah. And no one lets you know. I remember one of my last roles as an HR director. It was a family-owned business, and shortly after I got there, the VP and one of the owners, she said, "Oh, I need you to submit to me your budget for the department, and I need that, and here's what we've done in the past, and add on to it, and whatever." Well, I've been a director before, but finance gave me my budget, so I didn't have to like really come up with one. I just had to kind of work within what somebody else gave me. So I was like, how am I supposed to do this? And I was like, well, I know I don't want to under budget. What should I add in there? So I'm Googling stuff and looking at all kinds of stuff, and I was like, all right, y'all want a budget. This should be interesting. I was added in head count. I'm like, all right, here we go. Let the negotiations begin, and she was like, what? But I'm like, no one told me, no one ever taught me. So I just kind of have to learn on the fly and figure it out. And that's what a lot of people have to do. But, all of those things, someone should go through, what reports do they want to look at, and how do they gauge certain things, whether it be operational or market analysis, things like that, that they need for their role.
Absolutely. And I think they should know that because there are some people that feel like we don't need managers. Have you ever heard those individuals who are like, we don't need a
Hmm.
manager. We don't need a manager. Oh, so you're going to take care of
Mm.
all of these people in all these different groups? I truly doubt it. So, what skills would you say a manager needs to have for them to be successful, especially a new manager?
Absolutely. They need to be adamant about their development, and the tools. So they need to go out there and seek it, because 9 times out of 10, right? No one's going to give it to you. You're not going to get the training, or it's going to be late. I've started roles, and people have been in roles, and 6 months later they get the training. Well, that's a little late, right? So start searching out the tools, go on the company's intranet site, review the policies. Make sure you know that employee handbook. That's so important as a manager, because your employees are going to know it. So you need to know it on the policies and things like that, procedures. If you know that you have to approve expenses, review maybe the procedure and how to do expense reports or what have you. Really take responsibility and ownership for your own development. It's great if the company has a program. That's awesome. Make sure your manager, whoever signs you up and gets you enrolled. But if not, seek your own development. Don't wait. That's like my biggest thing, because if you wait, it could be months, years, or it may not come. So be adamant about your development. That's the one thing I would say.
Absolutely. And I'm a big proponent, I love the fact that people should definitely be engaged and take a part in developing themselves. But I also love organizations that understand when you have a developed leader, you
Mhm.
prosper, right? It's winning. They are
Absolutely.
definitely winning
Absolutely.
because they get to bring all those skills that they have and all the new skills that
Mhm.
they acquire. And that is in the best interest of your organization. I heard someone use the word PLOC before, when I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and they were saying that when you have a new manager, it's so important that they plan, they lead, they're organized, and they control. And I was like, oh,
I
wow.
like
Like,
that.
and I love that. And they
Yeah.
were like, yeah, because, you got to be able to plan, have your objectives put in place, and then you want to organize because you want to know what the organizational structure is and have a good understanding of that. So then you're able to communicate that to your
Absolutely.
team. And then also,
Yes.
leading, because you got to be able to be a good leader and effectively lead your team, whether it's through communication, team meetings.
Yeah.
Your team has got to believe in you and know that if this is
Mhm.
our directive, this is where we're trying to go, we can trust you and we can follow your lead. You and I know,
Absolutely.
how many people do we know lead organizations because they don't trust their leader?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So many, so many. And yet people think, oh, they leave because of price. And that may be something to do with it. But at the end of the day, if you love who you work with, it would have to take a lot of money to get you to move. And if someone comes and offers somebody $1 more or 5,000 more and they're willing to leave, they didn't like the leader. They didn't like the leader or the culture.
Right. Because it's just that
Mhm.
that small of amount. And I think to see that for that control, it's really, you want to make sure that the leader is ensuring that the performance does not deviate from the plan or what's
Mhm.
communicated out to the people. And they don't
Okay. Yep.
communicate the expectations clearly so that the employee
Mhm.
knows exactly what it is that you need from them. Because I've had
Right.
conversations when, we're trying to put someone on a PIP and the manager's like, I'm done, let's put them on a PIP. And then you have that
Mm.
conversation with the employee and you're like, well, what did you tell them, manager? And then you're sitting there like, wait, what? I don't even know what
Mhm.
you're trying to communicate to that employee. So I think it's really
Right.
important that they're able to communicate that and take control of that and be able to effectively let and explain to the person precisely what it is, clearly and concise. Be clear and concise
Mhm.
with the delivery. And that will make a big difference for a new manager, I say.
I agree. And when you kept saying, communication, 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 and that's so important. The leaders that I have trusted the most have led with transparency, and of course, there's always confidential stuff that they can't share, right? But having a leader that constantly gave you kind of like a little, what I call a peek behind the tent, so to speak, right? And kind of let you know bigger picture and the organization picture, department picture, and then where their team or where you fit into that, it's a game changer because then I feel like, wow, you trust me. I see where I fit in this big picture and what I need to do, right? And this team, right? So we know, the big picture of the team, this is the company, right? To be profitable and do these certain things, move into certain markets, whatever it might be. But then they break it down to where I fit in that or my team and I fit into that. And it's a game changer. It makes all the difference that the leader is trusted. There's that back and forth communication because then that helps the employee start to kind of set individual and department goals and then they can work on that. Yeah, that's one of the best things is to have that communication with their team.
I agree with that. I think that's one of the things, even for myself, like that makes a big difference when I have a leader that communicates. And sometimes I need them to over communicate. And that's really good too.
Yes.
I
Hmm.
think what a lot of new managers need too is they have to have goals, right? Like they need to know,
Absolutely.
you got to know where you stand and you have to be honest. And sometimes it's really
Hmm.
uncomfortable to be completely transparent and honest with yourself about your skill sets and where your
Hmm.
shortcomings are, kind of doing that SWOT analysis of yourself.
Right.
That's tough.
Right. Hmm.
That's tough, right?
Yep.
Because then you have to say, well, this is my strength. And then you have to admit that there are some weaknesses.
And the
And and
weaknesses.
and, and
Yep.
that takes a lot of humility, right? You got to put your
Yeah.
ego aside because this is for the
Yep.
betterment of your team and organization. So I would say once you complete that SWOT analysis on yourself, then you can kind of put
Hmm.
some goals and objectives in place for you as well as the team. And then make sure that you're always kind of doing a pulse check to kind of
Right.
say, okay, where are we? Where am I as the manager? And where's my team? How are we doing?
Hmm.
Where do we stand? I've had managers tell me that, you're like, well, when's the last time did you talk to them? When's the last time you spoke with your employee? And they will say things like, well, when we do check-ins or when we do maybe mid-year reviews. And I'm like,
Oh,
huh?
fail. Yeah.
What?
Wrong answer.
I'm like, wait, say what now?
You're
That
like,
is
and you
not
wonder why there's an
okay.
issue? No, no.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, it's like no one's checking in. And it's not because we're trying to be the parent of the employee, but I feel like that's we're doing a disservice to that employee by not doing check-ins and not seeing how they're doing. And then that's a great time for that employee to let you as the manager know what they need from you.
Absolutely. It's two-way, right? Whenever I
Absolutely.
would do one-on-ones with my team, we would kind of talk through, I give department updates. I want to hear updates about what they're doing. And then how can I support you? That's how it should end. What do you need? Where do you need my help? Do you need air cover somewhere? Do you need me to, one of my other managers, she used to say, do you need to block and tackle for you with anything? Do you need me to do any blocking? You know, because we don't want to seem like it's just one way. It's just two-way relationship, right? And you help me, how can I support you? And then you feel like, okay, we're in this together. And the employee doesn't seem like, oh, you guys are just, it's all on me and I have to do all this. No, we're all a team.
And then we
Absolutely.
have to measure, don't, I think that manager needs to also measure the performance. Not, of course, where businesses are here to make money, right? But when you become a new
Hmm.
manager, I think sometimes there's this, you come into some organizations and they put these new managers in a position and then they're like, these are the
Hmm.
financials, we expect you to make it. But it's like, whoa, they need to learn this whole new job.
Right.
So yes, we do want you to be responsible for the financials, but at the same time, we want you to be able to get your arms around this big beast of being a new
Yes.
manager, because that's a lot. If you can kind of get the people stuff down, you know what I mean? Where you're working with
Hmm.
the people, you're managing the people, they respect you, you respect them. Everyone has a better understanding of where we all stand and what our roles are, clearly defined roles. Then the financials will eventually come. They're going to come. And I
Right.
think we, as sometimes when we have new leaders, their leaders have unrealistic
But
expectations too,
yeah, they expect
which
them to
sets
jump
them up.
right into it. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm always like, wait, when did this person start? Yeah, I need you to take several seats and give them an opportunity to learn the business and what their new role is.
Yes. Yeah. And then it's like, have you sat down with them and gone through these reports? Have you do, well, I think they should know, and I think, and it's all these assumptions. But
Yeah.
let's not do that to, let's not do that to our managers. Why are we assuming? Let's assume the opposite, that they don't have these tools, that they're not aware. If they do know it, great. But if not, let's start off with the other way of assuming the most worst case scenario, right? Before we start, just assuming that they're perfect for the role, they know everything, they can start, day one, because that rarely happens.
Absolutely. Like you don't know what I'm a firm believer in you don't know what you don't know. If I don't know, how am I
Right,
going to do a great job? Because I don't know what
right,
I'm doing. You get
right.
into a position and sometimes you can be blindsided because you had
Hmm.
this idea of what a manager was going to be and what you thought you were
Hmm.
going to do. And then you get in and you're
Yes.
like, this is not what I signed up for. So I think
Right.
managers, leaders should really walk hand in hand with that employee in the beginning of they're becoming a new manager. So they have a clear understanding of, okay, this is what your leader expect from you. And this is what you should be
Hmm.
expecting from your team. I think oftentimes when that person gets into that new role, they're like, okay, we got you where you need to be. You're the new manager now. This is your team. Hope you make it. And they off into this,
Right.
and that person is sitting there
Right.
holding the
You
back
got
like,
it.
and they're like, you got it. And the person's like,
Okay.
okay, because
If you say so.
yeah, because
Yeah.
they're uncomfortable with saying no
Asking
because
for
they
help.
feel
Yeah.
like, should I know? Is it me?
Oh,
And it's
yes.
like, no, don't take that responsibility. Like, especially when you're what I call groomed, right? So you're homegrown
Hmm.
where they picked you, you've been with the company for a while and you kind of worked your way up the ranks. This is still new
Hmm.
for you. And if you're coming from outside, you're an external candidate. This is the
Hmm.
company is new to you. So how you manage it at
Hmm.
one place may not work at your new place.
Totally different. Yep.
Totally different expectations, dynamics, the whole navigating of the waters may be. You may have been
Hmm.
like the summer day at your old company, and that's like wintertime at the next. Totally different
Yes.
experiences, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
you've got to be able to have those real conversations like, okay, I know I was a manager, but what do you all do? Like
Hmm.
what's your best practice, right? What's your policies like? Because you may do things so different that can be a little difficult for someone coming in as an external candidate and then having your
Hmm.
internal candidate that never managed. That can be a hurdle that they have to jump to. So how would you
Right.
like what kind of advice would you give organizations that have these new managers coming in? what do we need to do to help these individuals become more successful and do a better job in the future than what we're seeing happening today?
One of the best things, and this reminds me of the last company I was at, they were expanding quickly and they were hiring VPs and things like that. And these folks were top in their fields and knew the core functions of their jobs per se, right? So it's like they knew hospitality, they knew this, that, and the other. But one of the hangups that they would often have are company tools and resources. So I would talk to them about certain resources and things, and they would have no idea. They didn't know how the departments were set up. They didn't know, for HR support, who was the lead and who to go to for what. They didn't know simple, just simple things, expensing and things that are simple but not so simple, right? But some of the basic tools that they would need as a leader. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is showing them where are their tools. If there's an intranet, having someone spend the day with them or two or a week and go through how the company is set up, the back office side of it, the administrative side, because that can deter you so much from doing your day-to-day job and being successful because you're busy searching and trying to find stuff. And, that's just an unnecessary distractor. So that to me, I found is one of the biggest things that a company to do is let them know where their tools are, where they can go for resources or who to go to for things. And that just is half the battle right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely half the battle because sometimes you get in organizations and their setup is so different where you can
Hmm.
barely find a policy, a procedure, or even if they have a
Yes.
handbook or not,
It's a
right?
right,
And that
right.
alone can be frustrating, right? Because how do you hold people accountable when you can't find the
Hmm.
policy or procedure, or you're not even 100% sure, like, what does it look like? Do they even have a policy for this? Because in your
Right.
mind, again, you're bringing your past experiences with you when you
Hmm.
come to these new organizations. So you're thinking one
Absolutely.
way, and then you get in the door and they're like, oh, we don't do that here. It's like, well, then what do you all do?
Right.
And so
Hmm.
I love the fact that you said, get them paired up with somebody. I think it's good to have like a buddy system when people
Yes.
first start, even if it's just for 5 days, those 5 business days, Monday through Friday. I think that makes a big difference.
Hmm.
But if you're going to pair them up with someone, pair them up with someone that's strong and that's a good teacher,
Yes.
because even that
Yes.
can be a little difficult if the person you're
Right.
paired up with, that's not their thing, right? Like they're
Not
not
just someone
the
who's been
best.
there the longest. Yes.
Yes. Oh gosh.
Whoever's been there the longest is not always, sometimes they're the worst because they're
They're
like,
the worst.
yeah, we're supposed to do this, but I don't do that. This is what you, yeah.
Yes,
They,
and this is how I do it. And then you pick up those
yeah.
bad,
That,
habits
yeah.
that work for them, but they're deemed as bad habits, or
Yeah.
they've done things off the cuff for so long. And half the things
Hmm.
they've done, you don't even know what they're talking about because you can't even find what they're talking about. Like, because
Right.
that's such a long time ago. The policies have changed so much since when they started.
Hmm.
So I really think it's good. I love the fact that you said to find them a buddy, get them acclimated to the company. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that will make a big difference too. Now, are you also a fan of like organizations having coaches for these new managers, or having like a resource there at the organization so that can help them to get up to speed too? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love them having a coach. I like them having like a peer mentor. I like even the setup of, having right when you come in, getting the leader orientation because I like it when companies sometimes separate regular orientation from like leadership. I worked at a couple of companies where you may have like generic where it's like overall company, organization thing, and then the leaders have their own set of orientations of things that they'll need as leaders and tools and stuff. I like that because it gets it immediately. And then maybe depending on the level, having leadership courses set up or whether they're internal or external. But something, a plan. At the end of the day, have a plan for these leaders when they come in and when they get promoted, instead of having to figure it out as they go along and as you find that they are having issues. If the performance review time is coming up, have some quick trainings on performance management, talk through the tools, how to get feedback, because updating the reviews or updating the booklets and then emailing it out, nobody looks at that. You may get 10% of the people who are going to actually open it up. Otherwise, they're calling, HR, And if HR is their mentor partner, great. That's what we have the business partner roles for at some companies and can sit with them and go through these things with them. Whether it's officially, I've done it officially and unofficially where I've seen it just a manager needs it. So we schedule time and do that. But something to have a plan, that's the biggest thing, and find out for your company what makes sense.
Right. And I'm glad you said that. Find out for your company what makes sense, because this is not a one all fits all. Like every
Right.
single company is different. What works at your
Mhm.
org may not work for my org, but what may
Right.
work at your org, I would wish that we had at our org, but we just may not do that because that's not the way we do business.
Mhm.
So really getting a better understanding, but having that plan, having a
Yeah.
plan is crucial to the success of the organization
Mhm.
and for that person in that new management position. And I could
Mhm.
not agree with you more. I also think too, like at my company, we have a new manager training. I think that is awesome because you get to spend time with other
Absolutely.
individuals like-minded who are
Yes.
also new,
Yes.
and they
Mhm.
would, share information. And I think that's good because
Mhm.
sometimes some are further along than others and they all can learn from each other. But then it also
Mhm.
helps you to see like it's not just you maybe going through that, right? Because misery
Yes.
does love
Right.
company.
Right, 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 right. The other person was like, they could call them and say, "Hey, is it just me? Did you find this out yet? No, I didn't find out. Okay, you find on your end. I'm gonna find on mine.
Kind
Okay,
of
go.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I
Yeah.
think that is
Mhm.
that is good. I love that idea. But this has been amazing, amazing, amazing. So tell the people, Desiree, if they want to
Mhm.
find you, how can they find you?
They can. Let's see. They can find me on LinkedIn, Dezzarae Henderson, or at For Hire HR Solutions. Also on my LinkedIn page. You can find me on Instagram at For Hire HR Solutions. What is that? Underscore HR Diva. So you can find me there as well, and also on Facebook under For Hire HR Solutions, and the number four Hire HR Solutions.
Excellent. Again,
Mhm.
it has been a pleasure. This is not the last time you're going to see Desiree
Yeah,
and I
it is not.
connecting. Not at all. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Desiree.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun. I always like talking to a fellow HR person. We can talk shop anytime.
Absolutely. As usual, thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Until next time.